Ed Bastian here in Dubai. Tonight he's going to receive the ATW 2024 Airline of the Year award. That's why he's here. He's also here as well for the 80th IATA AGM, which is going to be taking place here at the start of next week. But John, you bring up a couple of stories actually. You bring up what's happening with Boeing, but you also bring up the issue that we had earlier on in the week with the American numbers and the impact that had on the rest of the sector. Ed, great to see you. Congratulations on the award, first of all.
Well, thank you, Guy. It's good to be with you. It's good to be in Dubai, and really proud of our team.
Yep.
For their ability to continue delivering outstanding results for our customers. This is what makes these awards, first of all, very humbling to receive, but hungry to continue to win them.
Yep, you got to keep it up, don't you?
You got to keep it up.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of what is happening in the market right now and those customers that you talk about. We did see the American downgrade in terms of its guidance a few days back. I'm not going to ask you to comment on what is happening over at American, but really just to kind of get a comment on whether you're comfortable with your current guidance.
Yeah, the demand has been really strong. I think that was the issue, that with the American numbers and the quarter, as we've indicated all along for these last several years, that consumer demand and that priority to invest in experiences continues to be really, really healthy. June for us is always the largest travel month of the year, of the calendar, so we still have to see how June's going to go, but I'm confident it'll be a good result for the full quarter, and we'll see how June runs out.
Are you seeing any evidence that inflation, and it's inflation day, we're going to be watching those numbers, that inflation is starting maybe to hit the middle class traveller, that the middle class traveller is beginning to rethink maybe the attitude towards travel, which has been really strong over the last few years?
I don't see it. Our consumer tends to be at the upper end of the income scale. Our traveler tends to go internationally. Our consumer is prioritizing travel above things. So while you may be hearing from a number of industrial sectors, trade downs occurring, we're not seeing that in our numbers.
Do you think you will see that at some point? Do we go to a more normal? Is this the new normal in terms of what travel is going to look like? Will this continue to persist? The stock market continues to do very well. We're obviously seeing an upper end consumer that is still fairly flush with cash. Is that something that lasts years?
I think it's going to continue for quite a few years to come. One of the factors people don't give enough consideration to is our industry's capacity is lower than it's been given the constraints around OEMs, whether it's Boeing or engine issues. So our economy is a lot larger than we were historically, go back pre-pandemic, yet the amount of capacity that we're all able to fly is significantly constrained. And that's what's keeping demand as well as pricing pretty strong.
Okay, pricing. So fares are still fairly robust, are they?
Yeah. Fares on balance are about 20% higher than they were pre-pandemic.
You bring up business travel as well. Is that something that it has come back? It's maybe come back significantly more slowly than we've seen in terms of the retail story. But is that coming back? And ultimately, given that bigger economy, is that a bigger number some way down the road?
Well, business travel this year, particularly in 2024, has really stepped up. As we went through the return from the pandemic in 22 and 23, business travelers were still a bit sluggish, largely because they weren't back in their offices.
Yeah.
And they were still working from various remote locations. Once companies have finally laid the edict down, you needed to get back. And particularly as some of those businesses started to get a little challenged themselves, people wanted to be back in the office. That opened up the need to travel for consultancies to go visit clients, for people to get back out on the road to see their own people. So we saw about a 10-point increase in business travel at the start of the year, and that's continuing to climb.
Middle of the P&L, top line, okay, so we talked about that, that's looking good. Middle, what's happening in the middle of the P&L? Are you still seeing, what kind of inflation are you seeing in the business?
We're seeing inflation, but it's starting to moderate a bit. For us, the biggest part of our inflation story is wages, is our people, which that's the best type of inflation we can have, and our people continue to grow wages in the 4 to 5% per annum rate. We're continuing to work on productivity and efficiency so we can take some of those rates and make certain that they're productive increases. Other parts of the supply chain, where the supply chain's still not where it needs to be. We talked about the engine issues. We still don't.
How much is that holding you back?
Well, it's significantly. Again, it's not just Delta, it's the industry. And the turn times are longer. You now have turn times on planes that could extend up to months rather than weeks, which they should be. Parts are higher than ever. Material costs are growing. The manufacturers across the industry are having challenges.
This doesn't sound like an economy that you're describing that needs rate cuts right now.
Well, it's an economy right now, from my standpoint, that's doing well. But there's not just one consumer out there,
okay.
right?
Yep.
Our consumer, again, tends to be in the upper end. Our consumer generated a tremendous amount of wealth and continues to have that wealth through the pandemic. The market's up, real estate's up, unemployment is extraordinarily low.
They don't need more help, is basically what you're saying.
The lower end,
yeah.
I think there's some challenges. So that's something that the Fed will look at all the data. I don't think an airline is necessarily the indicator.
You've got a pretty good view of what's happening in the economy.
Yeah, our business is doing quite well.
Okay, you bring up Boeing, you talk about what's happening with the OEMs, Boeing and Airbus, but it's also the engines, as you mentioned, the Pratt & Whitney engine issues that we've been seeing. How long does this last? How much of a struggle is it to get hold of the kit that you need right now? How long do you think the problems that we're seeing at Boeing and Airbus and Pratt & Whitney are going to be lasting for?
Well, right now we have no Boeing orders that we're anticipating delivery on in the next several years. So from our standpoint, it's really an Airbus story. Airbus has been a great partner. And Airbus continues to provide us the planes and the technology that we've been expecting for them, and they were right through the pandemic. The engines are going to be a bigger issue, particularly for us, the geared turbofan. That's slowing down a little bit about the amount of new deliveries that we can take, but it's more engines than it is planes. And what it's causing us to do is maintain the existing fleet we have a little bit longer, so that's another cost to the business.
You are well known for keeping your fleet for longer. It had the age of the average aircraft has come down a little bit over the last few years. But does that strategy work in an environment where the sustainability question comes in? If you fly older planes, they inherently tend to be less efficient. Is that a problem that you're going to come across at some point?
I don't think so. Again, I think this is transitory. I think the OEMs will get their parts. I think they will get the transition. Again, a lot of this is about labor and the fact that many of the engine, not just the tier 1, but down into the tier 3 and tier 4 of the supply chain, let a lot of people go. So it's experience, it's staffing, it's rates. I mean, it's a very complex story. But long term, I feel good about our sustainability story. We're taking our overall footprint down in the range of 1 to 2% per year, every year, and that's going to continue to go on. And as we get new planes, those numbers are going to go down faster.
Politics is going to become a bigger and bigger issue over the next few weeks and months as we approach November. When you think about who goes next to the White House, what does the next administration need to do to keep the aviation market that you've just described, this buoyant market, this market with momentum, keep it going? What do you need to see from the next administration to keep it on track?
Most important thing is infrastructure investment. Maintaining the current structure is challenging, and they need to continue to modernize the technologies. They continue to need to get air traffic controllers staffed and hired and in position to enable us to grow. And from an investment standpoint, that's where we're very happy to see the FAA reauthorization bill finally come about. It took, unfortunately, months, if not a year overdue in its delivery, but it's here now, and we're going to work closely with the FAA to make that happen.
Just to wrap the conversation up, you feel like you are on the front foot at the moment. This is an airline that is growing. What is the capacity constraint that you are seeing right now that is going to slow your rate of growth down? If I'm an investor looking at Delta, is this as good as it gets, or does it get better from here?
We're doing well on capacity growth. This year we expect to grow our top line in the mid single digits, in that 4 to 6, 7% range, which I think is healthy growth, considering particularly the growth we've had over these last handful of years. This year will be the highest revenues in our company's history, quarter of $60 billion plus or minus. And the outlook, I think, is strong, because I think the supply chain and the constraints are only going to get a little bit better as we move forward.
Ed, congratulations on the award, the ATW award that you'll be getting here in Dubai this evening. Great to see you here in Dubai.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for stopping by to see us here.
Thanks, Guy.
Bloomberg.
Great to be with you.
Thank you very much.